Warriors against the Raiders, round 21. Warriors coming off the back of one of the best wins of the season up against the Sharks last weekend. Raiders will be looking for some revenge after we spoiled Croker's 300th. Let's take a look how this might play out. Hey team, welcome back to the Warriorholic. Still buzzing, I'm sure you guys still are after that bloody amazing win over the Sharks in the weekend. Got to say it's one of the best wins I've ever seen from the Warriors all over the past 28 years. One of the best games I've been to live. Absolutely buzzing, to get that elusive defence and offence clicking on the same day. Poor bloody Sharkies had no answer. The question is though, up against a very different team this week in the Raiders, can we do it back to back? By all accounts, initially early on in the week, the weather was looking to be really stormy, pretty much the same as it was against the Rabbitohs a few weeks back when we struggled. However, it looks like the weather's going to ease a little bit. Hopefully, it'll be cloudy, but the rain's meant to stop sort of mid-afternoon. They've got 3 or 4 hours without rain before kickoff, and it doesn't look like there's meant to be too much rain. A little bit breezy, quite similar to what we had on the weekend there. So hopefully nothing that will really have a huge impact on the game. But we'll notice in a minute when we take a look at both teams are pretty heavy there in the forward packs and the bench. Both probably anticipating a game in pretty sort of wet and slippery conditions. Now, I think one of the key turning points for me for the season for the Warriors was that win against the Raiders. You're going in there, it's a big celebration game. 300th match is a massive occasion. Over there in Canberra, it's not an easy place to travel to. We just stepped up. We were very confrontational in the forwards. We were very clinical. And in the end, we got the win quite comfortably. The Raiders, again, we'll have a look in a minute at the recent form. They've got a few wins, but they haven't been against really notable teams. They haven't been by big margins. They haven't scored a lot of points. So on paper, you'd think that the Warriors, would go in clear favourites, and the bookmakers have them that way. In Australia, I think the Raiders are paying about $4. But they're just one of those teams. If they click on the day, they've got class across the park, individual brilliance, but they've got a really solid, balanced team across the field. We play slightly off our game. There's every chance that they could get up over us. So I don't think we want to get too cocky. As we break this down, we'll see a few examples of where we should be able to dominate, but also when we go through the lineups, you'll see there's plenty of players we need to be careful of. It was great to get that interview done with Chance this week, so it put me a little bit back in my schedule for preparing, so this is a little bit laid out and it's not going to be quite as detailed as always, but if you haven't had a chance, please do go back and have a look at the Chance interview. Really, really insightful there. Great guy, and hopefully we have a few more coming up over the coming weeks and months. So head to head, I think we have close to the best, for and against the Raiders compared to any other teams that we come up against, with 22 wins to us and 23 to them. So we win on Friday night. We go even with them, which is probably one of the only teams that we even get close to being even with. So over the years, it's obviously been a pretty even match up there. If we look at the current season, we both had the 11 wins, 18 games played by us. They've had the extra bye. So they sit ahead of us by one place on the table there, even though we've both got 28 points and we've got the better for and against. As you can see there, total we're 110 points in the plus, that 55 in the negative. If you look on an average per game rate, 24 for, 18 against for a plus 6 ratio for us over the whole season, 22 for, 25 against for a minus 3. So it's really interesting how this season's playing out statistically, and I think these points for buys, the timing of the buys is sort of really making the table hard to read, because with those that much of a points for and against in our favour, same amount of points you'd expect us to be sitting ahead of them, but we win this week and we get the buy next week, we'll really leapfrog ahead of them. So looking at the form guide though, so this is more of a tell for me, because we all know that we had sort of a little bit of a flat patch there in the beginning of this, or in the middle of the season there. We know that we weren't scoring a massive amount of points early on, but we've really put our foot down over the past sort of 7 or 8 weeks. So I think that tells a much better story. So we've had both had 4 wins out of our last 5 games, but the total, we're 180 points for and 82 against, with a plus 92. They're only 116 for and 121 against, -5. So they're going in, the -5 winning, sort of for and against, having won 4 games. So it's a pretty odd situation for them to be in. And if you look at the average, we're 36 for and 14 against. They're 23 for and 24 against. So they're on a minus. Really sort of odd way that's sort of playing out. And I think their loss to us had a big impact there. And sort of, you look at the win over the Tigers there, 20-19. Not big points that they're putting on. So tonight I thought I'd take a little bit of a different approach here with the stats. And I've taken a bit of a dive into some a few other areas that I don't normally get into. So we've got the traditional completion rates there, 79 for us, 77 for them. So very similar. But we did complete at 90% last weekend. Really hope we can do that this week. Tackle efficiency there, basically both around the 88 mark, nothing in it. So where are the big differences? So if you look at tries scored, this is a total number here by both teams, 77 tries for us. We're 5th on the whole NRL for tries scored. They've only had 59, down in 13th. Our highest try scorer there, Dallin Wataniazili's he's on 5th with 15 tries. Where you've got Hopewati there, he's only got 8. He's their highest try scorer. I think Timoko's actually got 8 as well. On 41st, and I think Timoko is 42nd from memory there. Try assist, you've got SJ in 3rd in the whole NRL with 19 versus Fogarty there with 11, and he's down in 18th. So, some clear scoring ability in our favour there. So, how do those come about? Looking at the line breaks here, we've had 103 total. We're in 3rd in the whole NRL versus 68. They're down on 16th. Really surprised me. They're only 68 line breaks for them for the whole season. Dallin leading the way for us was 16 and 11th, and Timoko there in 30th with 10. So they're not making a lot of line breaks here, which is quite surprising. I think that's reflected from the fact they score a lot of tries from kicks. Tackle breaks, 585 total for us in 6th. They're last, 496, which is really surprising because I've got some big boys. You look at someone like Jack Wyden or even Papali'i in the Forge, you'd expect them to be right up there, but they're actually right at the bottom for tackle breaks. Leading the way for us is Chance in 18th with 66. Timoko there, he's in 13th, so he's got a few more individually there with 77. But other than him, they're really sort of lacking in the tackle break department there. Righty-ho, then we look at the defensive side of things. Tackles made, we're 2nd with 6,201 made versus their 5,810 and 8th. You could look at that from the perspective that maybe they've had the ball in their hands more and haven't had to make as much tackles, or you can look at it from the perspective, we've made a lot of our tackles, as we saw there with the completion rates, efficiency rates are not so different. So you would have to imagine their overall possession has been relatively high over the season to be ahead of us there. Top tacklers, Tohu for us, he's 20th with 573. Corey Horsburgh there with 596, he's in 15th. He'll be coming off the back of the first ever game there, debut for the Maroons in Origin, would have learnt a lot. He's really having a good season, so it'll be an interesting challenge for Tohu when we get into those matchups. Missed tackles, however, total 571 for us and only 559 for them. So we've actually missed more than them. We're the 8th worst, no, the 11th worst in the comp there. Jackson Ford there was 61 missed. He's actually 9th worst in the whole competition versus Elliot Whitehead, who's got the 56 there. So defensively, relatively similar. Like I've said in recent videos, I'm not sure our missed tackles are as much of a issue as you might think, because the places we're missing them are not leading to tries and line breaks. It's more of, like I said, struggling to deal with those agile guys. We don't rush up and leave holes outside them. We tend to hold our shape a little bit better. So hopefully it's not something we have to worry about too much in the weekend, particularly with their lack of line breaks and so forth. So tonight I haven't had a chance to break down all of the individual stats, so we're going to take a look at the backlines versus backlines. So for us, we've got an unchanged backline there. Chance at fullback, Dallin on one wing, Berry and Pompey in the wings, Montoya on the other wing, and Luke Metcalf and Shaun Johnson. So this must be about our 4th game in a row now with an unchanged backline. Really starting to see those combinations build, which is a big step in our favour. Likewise, though, they've had very few changes over the past few weeks, so they've got a really settled lineup there with Chris at the back, Hopoate on one wing, Croker, Timoko, Napana, Whiten, and Fogarty. So if you take this year's form out of it and you basically just compare, reputation, experience, and ability, I think these are very even matchups. Obviously, Chance has had a lot more experience than Chris, but we saw Chance get dropped down to their reserve grade last year before he came back to us. So, Chris is a young up-and-comer, but just purely on the form and the effort that we're seeing from Chance, I'm going to have to give that to him. Dallin against Hopoate, Dallin's having the season of his life, particularly in the back half here. One of the form wingers, arguably one of the best finishers in the game right now, so I'm going to give him a slight tick there. Rocco Berry with another chance to go up against the 300-game veteran. I think he outplayed him in the big game. Hopefully he's going to do that again, but Croak is highly experienced, so he'll come back and knowing a bit more about Rocco's game this time, so be curious to see how that one goes. Pompey against Timoko, right? I really rate Timoko. He'll probably be the centre for the Kiwis the next time we head out, but I felt like Pompey was able to get one up over him. He used the size, he used his, the width of his arms to kind of close down the space. I really hope he can do that again, because with the speed, power and ability Timoko's got, he's one of the real guys we have to be careful of that could break the game open. Then we've got Montoya up against Rapana. Montoya continues to deliver at a really high level. His energy, his run meters, the work he does for the forwards is outstanding. But with Rapana, he's one of those guys who's rocks or diamonds. He wasn't great against us last time. He has the odd really rough game, but he's one of those guys who can just pull shit out of his ass, turn a game, from nothing. So I think we've got to be careful of him, but I'm pretty confident that Montoya can handle him based on current form. Then we've got young Luke Metcalf up against the veteran there and Jack Whiten. Mate, when we played last time, I was a little bit concerned, given the size difference there, the strength difference, but Metcalf has just continued to step up over the past few weeks. He's not afraid to get in front of bigger bodies than him. He's shown his speed and his ability to kind of, particularly with the support play off Egan at dummy half, but also getting off other runners. I think is a really balance of what both guys bring in here. We'll probably see that Whiten will do a lot more kicking than Metcalf more likely will. They tend to split it a little bit more balanced than us, but curious to see. But we're really going to have to get on Whiten, because we know he's got an offload, we know he's got a step, we know he's a big guy. He's another one who can turn a game with his Origin international experience. And then we've got the halves. Shaun Johnson again continues to deliver what I would say at Dally M, points winning performances every week. I dare say he would have gone close to getting maximum points last week against the Sharks. Up against the guy in Fogarty, I think, who's been a real find for the Raiders. He's got a really uncanny kicking game. Able to find those posts, get those random bounces. He's probably got one of the top, 3 high and long bombs in the game. So he's got a much sort of higher kicking game than SJ. So they'll rely a lot of that, particularly if it is a bit greasy underfoot, wet ball, windy conditions. He could have a really big impact on this. I seriously, although we match up really well man for man, I certainly don't think we want to get cocky up against these guys, because like I said, if they're on, we're slightly off. They've got the ability to carve us up, but purely on recent form, you've got to slightly give it to the Warriors without getting too far ahead of myself. But yeah, definitely more than capable of matching us. Then if we move on to the forwards, again, this is pretty much the same lineups we came up against last time. So we've got AFB in there, Wade Egan, Bunty Afa's back in, Jackson Ford, Marata Niakora's back in, which is a really big in for us. Tohu Harris in our starting lineup there. Up against Papali'i, Wolford, Tapene, Young, Whitehead and Horsburgh. Again, man for man, this is a pretty even, on paper, a pretty even matchup. AFB up against Papali'i. We saw AFB dominate that across the the stats, the run meters, the post-contact meters, the tackles made. Although Papali'i did have a big solid impact for his team there. I'd back AFB to dominate this one again. For me, he's the top probably 2 or 3 props in the game, if not the top guy. Wolford I like, but I don't think he's on Egan's level as far as the ability with the deception, the running out of dummy half. and the complete game that we've seen from Egan over the past few weeks. But they have got another hooker there on the bench who adds a lot of spark there in Starling. So it's going to be an interesting one. I hope Egan continues his form. His combination with SJ on the weekend was next level. So I'm going to give him a tick there. Bunty Afai, it's great to have his size back there. He gets a lot of stick, but I definitely felt a little bit uncomfortable with the lighter bench there last week. It proved to be a masterstroke in the end, but in heavy conditions, I'm really happy to have the big body up there, particularly his defence coming up against a guy like Tapine. Prop of the year last year, capable of really turning a game, but he's been a little bit quiet this year. Running meters are definitely higher than Bunty's, but I rate Bunty to match him on the defence, so potentially giving Tapine a bit of a nod there. Forward up against Young. Young was, with his early debut for Origin, looking like he was going to be one of the next big things, but I really don't think he delivered in Origin. I think after being dropped from that, he's really struggled to really hit his form again. So, he's an aggressive, angry guy who gets frustrated easily. Hopefully Ford will, more than match him. We saw that last time. Ability-wise, he's able to match him, but hopefully he can match the aggression there. Keep hitting those holes. He's hitting some really, really good lines, particularly sort of around the halfway mark. So looking for that to continue this week, but a pretty even match up there for me. Marata Niakoria coming back in after those 3 weeks off will be really refreshed. He'll be looking to, sort of pay the boys back for being away there. But he's just got to harness that aggression. I love the fact that he's really, he's smashing people at the moment. But he's just got to drop that bloody, drop those hips down an extra few inches to make sure that shoulder's hitting people in the shoulders or the chest and not in the face. But again, it'll be a pretty interesting matchup there. Whitehead's he's a stalwart. He gets through a power of work. I don't think he's got the distribution skills and the agility that Marata brings, but he'll definitely bring it as far as workload, as far as aggression goes. So it should be a pretty even matchup there as well. But I'm going to give it to Marata, hopefully based on a bit of extra energy, having had that break. Then we've got the veteran and Tohu up against Horsburgh. Like I said, he's a young, highly emotive, highly energetic guy, plays with a lot of passion, makes power tackles. It really surprised me. On average, he's making more tackles than Tohu a game. He's not obviously going to contribute as much on attack as Tohu does, and the overall impact on the team, I think you can't question Tohu. Only having him on there for 36 minutes against the Sharks, you saw a couple of times there when things were sort of slightly going against us in the second half. The minute we brought Tohu in, he really solidified the middle there. We saw after that early try that Hines scored, Tohu was the one there behind the post, pulling the boys together and really got us back in the game. So, I think I do really like Horsburgh. He's one of the most entertaining players in the comp. I enjoy him, but I'm hoping Tohu can sort of, just use his experience here to get one up over him. Right, the Interchange. Very different looking Interchange from us this week compared to what we've seen over the past few weeks. What I would say, we've had those very light, fast benches, but, looking a lot more solid here with a couple of middles in there. So we've got Dylan Walker, Mitch Barnett, Tom Ali, and Freddie Lussick. Interesting to see Lussick get in there ahead of Curran, particularly in Suriname. Not quite sure what's behind that. Maybe it is just looking to have that injection of speed. Maybe there's a little bit of a concern with SJ's ankle that maybe we have to see Egan go to the halves again. I'm not 100% sure there, but it's an interesting call. Up against Starling, Gula, Solo and Mariota. They are three big props and a hooker versus we've got the versatile high impact middleman and Walker, but he can play all over the park. Mitch Barnett covering prop in the edges there. Tom Ali, genuine middle, and Freddie Lussick. I guess that we can see him playing in the middle. We could probably see him playing on an edge if he had to, but mostly a hooker. What do we expect to see from the benches? Well, as long as it's not so wet, we're going to be moving the ball very quickly again. They've got a big pack. They've got a big bench, and expect them to sort of tire out in the back half of the game like we saw previously. I think even with big guys like Barnett and Ali, they're both very fit. So I think we're going to be looking for a high-energy game. For me, what's going to be really vital here is the execution. We saw our completion rate up over the 90% mark last week. with just 6 errors versus the week before where we got it done with a really low completion rate and 16 errors. So I don't anticipate that the Raiders will throw it around willy-nilly. They are an offloading team. They might have an error in them, but I expect them to be playing a pretty direct game. I expect them to rely a lot on kicks, trying to get those bounces of the ball, so diffusing the bombs, being ready for those little grubbers is going to be really, really vital for us. Likewise, I think SJ is going to have to really ensure he pins them right down in those corners. I think we have to play that Cody Walker style if it is wet, where we turn the team around and make them hit it off their own line. Stop trying to get a little bit too frantic too early. What I did like up against the Sharks is that we saw the Sharks come out with a huge amount of energy and intensity. We weathered the storm with just the one try there. They didn't even look like scoring again in the first half, but we just slowly built our way into the game, and then we just put the foot down. And again, we've done it for the most of probably the last 6 rounds, is being able to score tries on tries on tries, and a number of our games going all the way back to that Broncos loss where we scored potentially 4 tries in the last 10 minutes and the last one was taken off us. We've done it in almost every game other than the South loss, where we've scored multiple tries in the space of 10 minutes, which puts teams out of the game. So we're going to have to be ready for a big confrontational battle in the first 10, hold them out, defend against those kicks, then start to put the foot down, because I don't think that the Raiders will have the ability to really chase us down if we get away from them. But an interesting stat I heard from one of the Raiders podcasts today, that no team has won off the back of a 5-day turnaround unless they're playing another team on a 5-day turnaround this season. Raiders coming off the back of the bye, they'll be refreshed, they'll be energetic. We had a relatively easy win. We've got a couple of fresh guys coming back in. I think not having to travel will be a key for us there. I think the energy that we're getting from the performances will have a massive crowd there. Hopefully we can kind of go against that one there. I also believe they mentioned another stat where or it may have been on the radar, if the Raiders can get more than 20 points, they win more often than not. If they're kept under 20 points, they basically lose. Our average, against there? I think it was 18 points. We hold them to our average of 18 points, the chances are we should be able to get this done. My personal prediction is about 26-16. I think we'll get 5 tries, convert a couple, maybe miss a couple in that wind. I think they'll probably get 3 tries and again maybe miss one or so. I don't think it'll be the same kind of 30-40 plus blowout. I'd love it to be. I think it'll be tighter, but again, I'm quietly confident, but try not to get ahead of myself, try to be respectful of the opposition, but this is our house, boys. This is our fortress. This is our whare. The boys have a genuine passion to defend that. Those people who can get to the game, I hope you really rack it up and make it one of the noisiest games of the year. Off the back of that support, I think the boys can get it done, head into the bye for a refresh, and then it's on and upwards into the top 4 where we stay for home semi-finals, people. Up the mighty Warriors. This is the Warriorholic. 24 hours to go. Enjoy the build-up.